This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I react to your hot takes here in video format, go through the comment section, and try to have some conversations about football through the comment section. Let's get to the first comment that I kind of want to jump into, and it has to do with if the Browns wide receivers are slow. And I think this is a great time to talk about how misleading some numbers can be if you don't really look into it. But let's get into the question and some of the stats that are out there that have floated this concern amongst the fan base. Let's start here. Sauce Drippin says, the issue I see is that the wide receiving core has literally running amongst the slowest routes the league based on miles per hour hit during routes, 13.6 on average. Combine that with a higher percentage of deeper route depths, and you have a recipe for disaster. Grant you, yes, Watson could dump off to the flat more often. Okay, that part of it right here, right? Combine that with the higher, deeper route depths, and you have a recipe for disaster. Grant you, Watson could dump off to the flat more often. That section right there. That would be good, or that would sound good if it were true. That's not what's going on. The Browns aren't running more deep routes than ever. They're running a similar amount than they always have. And Watson is almost exclusively only throwing to the flat. Like so Watson's throws within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage actually makes up for 65% of his passing attempts this year. That is up from 60 in 2023, and that is up from what it was in 2022. It's a massive increase for Watson. He's actually done less deep ball throwing and less intermediate passing than he's ever done in his career, and more throwing check downs and dump offs. And that's going to factor into that miles per hour number in just a second, but I'm going to get into more detail about that. But just wanted to combat that claim. That claim right there made by this commenter, I don't think they did it on purpose, but it's simply not true. It's just there to kind of bolster this commenter's argument, but it's not true that the Browns are going downfield more often right now. I think that might be the perception some people have, but the reality is that the Browns are throwing the ball within 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage at a higher rate than they did when DTR played quarterback in 2023. Deshaun Watson, 65% of his passes within 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. Last year, DTR, 64% of his passes within 10 yards and behind the line of scrimmage, which does go into those mile per hour numbers that you are seeing. All right, so where did this whole thing about the Browns wide receivers being slow and they're not running down fast enough and the miles per hour is really slow on them come from? Well, I think it comes from an article written by The Athletic. I don't know who specifically wrote it, but it's usually Jason Lloyd who writes these things. And I think he just kind of doesn't fully survey the context, or even is critical enough of the context of why these stats exist. And I think that ended up being a bit of an irresponsible choice, because now these numbers are being used to push something that they actually don't represent. But let's get to the numbers that were there, right? There's this whole thing about Deshaun Watson on his 20-plus yards downfield throws. Wide receivers have averaged 14.7 miles per hour. That's the slowest amongst any wide receiver group, right? That sounds convincing. Same thing here, 2.8 yards of separation. Don't really have much beef with that stat. This one right here is the one I have a lot of beef with, though. Entering Sunday Night Football, the Browns wide receivers have averaged a max route speed of 13.6 miles per hour this season. That's the third slowest. So you read that stuff and it makes it seem like the Browns wide receiver room is super slow. And I can see how you can hear that on first glance, not really think about it, and get that takeaway from these numbers. But these numbers exist for a very specific reason. Part of a wide receiver's ability to run really fast is just natural. But another thing that enables a wide receiver to run really fast is the type of routes that they get to run, and what part of the field do they get to run those routes, and where are they targeted on the field. And I think that's the number one culprit of these low mile per hour numbers, right? When you look at the short stuff, right? It's super short, right? This is Deshaun Watson's passing chart against Dallas. You can see here there's like 3 balls downfield, critically only like 2 of them in that middle of the field area when you would really be able to accelerate as a receiver. But look how many of these balls are either short or on the sideline here. And this is Dallas. This is about as much downfield passing as the Browns had done all season is the Dallas game. And one thing to point out is that you're not going to hit a high miles per hour total when you're running a lot of routes towards the sideline, because you have to slow down to turn around and track the ball and to keep your feet in bounds. You're just going to naturally decelerate there. So, and these passes that are on the sideline aren't going much further than 20 yards. So you have to assume that a wide receiver's on the line of scrimmage, right, for like these 2 passes. They're able to accelerate up to the 10-yard line, and then they have to spend the last 10 yards tracking and making sure they're in position to keep their body in bounds when the ball is thrown in that direction. We're really talking about 3 throws where you can expect any kind of super acceleration from your wide receivers, and we really don't know what the nature of these throws are. Like, I can't recall it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he was inaccurate on these throws, which is also going to mess with miles per hour numbers. We can pull up his chart from week 2 against Jacksonville, and you see more of the same. It's just a little bit more extreme of what I'm talking about, right? 2 20-plus yard throws, one right here on the 20. It was a comeback. So Jerry Jeudy had to come back to this ball. So that's definitely not going to lead to a super high miles per hour number. None of the passes were in this area of the field where you would expect there to be a high miles per hour number. And then another ball here on the sideline that was completed. And then you look here for week 2, I believe. No, week 3 versus the New York Giants. And again, it's more the same, right? There's that touchdown to Amari Cooper to start the game. There's this ball right here that was incomplete. I think that was another ball to Amari Cooper where he had to kind of stop and come back to it. Then I think that was one of the last plays of the game. And then again, no middle of the field deep balls being thrown. So one, that's going to lead to your overall miles per hour being slow, because how fast can you run as a wide receiver when these are the routes that you're being targeted on? This is why critical thinking is important when talking about stats, because you can look at that stat and come to the obvious conclusion that the Browns wide receivers are slow. But you really got to ask the question, why does that stat exist? Like, why are these wide receivers not running as fast as the other wide receivers? And part of it might be because they just aren't physically capable or fast enough. But another part of it might be that the targets that they're getting does not really allow them to accelerate at full speed. Like, ask yourself this question when you watch the Browns. Does it feel like Deshaun Watson is giving his wide receivers a ton of opportunity to accelerate, to show their top speed when he's targeting them in the play? And also remember that these are targets, right, that are being measured, not necessarily every route that wide receiver is been running. When you see a low miles per hour on targets, you got to ask yourself, okay, where are the targets? Because that tells you more than the miles per hour number does. Because how fast can you be expected to run as a wide receiver when the bulk of your targets are within 10 yards? A lot of these are curls and comebacks. You're just not going to get a high miles per hour, right? Deshaun Watson is throwing a lot of balls and targeting these wide receivers that are in this area, right? And this is targets. This isn't where everybody's running routes. There are routes down in the middle of the field in that deep area, but those stats only track who's getting targeted and how fast the targeted wide receiver is running, which again is why it could be a bit misleading without that context. So you could just see here, this kind of spray pattern is not going to lead to a ton of really fast routes being ran, because you're not even given the natural opportunity to run really fast. I mean, this Dallas game, these are all hook routes where you just run 5, cut back, and just like, get your hands to the ball. You're not going to get fast on these plays. So that's a huge part of the reason why the overall miles per hour number is down. If you're wondering why the 20 plus miles per hour number is down, again, it has to do with where these balls are being targeted. Like if you want to see what a fast wide receiver chart looks like, this is what it looks like. Tyreek Hill, you notice you get that middle of the field going, right? That's where Tyreek Hill gets his fastest stuff in. There's a lot of spray stuff here where you'll throw it out there. And then just look at how far downfield this chart stretches, right? 20 plus, there's a 30 plus, 30 plus, 30 plus, 30 plus. And then you compare it to Deshaun, where like what, 130 plus throw, another 30 plus throw. There's been 230 plus throws all season. Tyreek Hill got targeted 2 times in that area. Jalen Waddle, right? You see them using the middle of the field, especially that deep middle field part of it. They have a good miles per hour number when targeted downfield because of how they're using their wide receivers. And then you look at the Browns wide receiving charts. It's a lot of sideline stuff. It's a lot of stuff right here that sprays out to the sideline. Very rarely you're getting anything in the middle of this field. Right now, you got nothing in the middle of the field for Amari Cooper so far. And then you look at Jerry Jeudy, same thing here, right? It's like one drive concept, a bunch of unders, mesh here, and then this is that improvisational play that they made past the 20-yard line in the Jacksonville game, and then you have a deep corner route here. So there's not an opportunity for your receivers to run fast because of how your quarterback is targeting them. So that number that was put out there by The Athletic isn't really a measurement of how fast the wide receivers are. It's more of an indictment of where Watson is targeting these wide receivers. Now, again, Watson might only be targeting them in that area because he doesn't trust them to get downfield fast enough. But this is Jerry Jeudy, who is known to run a 4.4. You have Elijah Moore, who is known to run a 4.3. Amari Cooper is not as fast as he once was, but we know from last year in 2022 that Amari Cooper still has enough speed to break out downfield. He's done it plenty of times last year. So I don't think this is a question of the wide receiving room being slow. This is a question of utilization, because if you look at how these wide receivers are being utilized, you could put anybody in that situation and you're going to get lower miles per hour numbers from them because you're not even putting them in a spot to be targeted and have to run fast while being targeted. So that to me, I think makes that whole stat kind of misleading. I'm not saying whoever put it out there was intentionally trying to be misleading, but I am saying that that number is misleading when you actually look at the context of why it exists, because it's more about the quarterback and where he's targeting the ball. And again, I think that's why some people believe, oh, they're throwing downfield a lot, right? And I think even the person who asked the question thought that that was the case, that the Browns are throwing downfield. But you look at the targets for Deshaun Watson, this dink dunk city. Look at all these checkdowns right here versus Dallas. Same thing here. I mean, check down, 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 check down. Same thing here. Check down, check down, check down, check down, curl, flat, curl, check down, check down. Like this is nothing but check downs. When you're running that shallow, you're going to have a low miles per hour number. It's not really reflective of the wide receivers, especially when you're targeting that shallow. And remember, that number that you saw there is only measuring the speed of wide receivers who have been targeted, not wide receivers who are running routes total, right? So that is another factor in this that needs to be considered. But I don't think it's the wide receivers are slow. I think this is more about utilization. Couple more comments from my It's Time to Get Real about the quarterback conversation. Max Out Dojo says the situation is one of the reasons Jameis was brought in. My concern about how long it might take for Kevin and Cole to bench Deshaun for Jameis. We've seen them try to hold on to play prospects far beyond the point of knowing they wouldn't work out. Got to get real here. Lord knows the last thing we want is a quarterback controversy, but staring us right in the face. So pull the trigger, coach. Thanks for all you do, Q. Yeah, that's the one thing I think is really up for question here with Kevin Stefanski. He's like, hey, how fast are they going to pull the trigger here? I don't expect them to do it immediately, right? But I think you got to consider doing something if nothing changes before week 7 when you start your divisional slate of games. Like, Once you start that slate of games, I think you just got to go with what you have for the rest of the season. I think up until that point, you have a lot of room for flexibility. So we'll see what they do. I hope they have learned from past mistakes and have learned to cut bait, because as much as we've given them crap about hanging on to Anthony Schwartz and being stubborn about certain things, they did get rid of Siaki Ika like a year after they drafted him. So like they are in Cade York. They got rid of him a year after they drafted him. Perion Winfrey, they got rid of him a year after they drafted him. So they are willing to move off of decisions that they feel like are clearly bad. It's just wondering what route they're going to take with Deshaun Watson in this case, and what route they feel like is necessary to take with Watson at this case, at this point at least. Kevin Russell says, normally love all your videos. Watson has been sacked 16 times in 3 games. Hit at least double that. 0 running game. Cooper dropped a big pass in the first 2 games. Poor play calling. He's not the major issue. Let's not talk about how we are the most penalized team in the league. Pittsburgh wins with below average quarterback. It's not a Watson issue. If your defense for superstar quarterback Deshaun Watson is that he should be able to play bad and the team should still be able to be good enough around him to win, then the plot's lost. Again, we're talking about a superstar quarterback, and we're comparing him unfavorably, by the way, to Justin Fields, who is blowing him out the water in literally every quarterback metric you can find. Where's the actual argument for Deshaun Watson being a benefit to this team right now? Like, seriously, that's what I would like to hear from these people who defend Deshaun Watson no matter what. Tell me right now what he is doing that is making the team better. I keep hearing how nothing is his fault from people who still want him to be the quarterback, but tell me right now, what is he doing that is making the team better? What stat? What area of the passing attack is he excelling at? What area is he excelling at, period, where he's making the team better? Because I can put together an argument that makes the case that he's not making the offensive line issues better. He's actually making it worse. I can put together an argument that makes the case that he's not helping wide receiver separation issues. He's actually making it worse. Those arguments can be made and can be supported with data and film. Where is the argument that Deshaun Watson is actually helping the team be better? I'm not trying to be mean about it. I'm just really asking, where's the argument there? Because I haven't found one, come across one, or have thought of one while watching Deshaun Watson play this first 3 weeks. I could have done that in 2023. But he's playing significantly worse than he's played in 2023. We got to get real, dog. We got to get real. Like, when your cope has gotten to this point, it's over. We know it's over. We've been through this before. It ain't never going to be what you want it to be. That victory lap is never coming. That's okay. But we need to start being able to let it go and move on if we need to, because this might not be a situation where starting Deshaun Watson makes the Cleveland Browns better going forward. We don't know for a fact yet, but it's starting to feel that way. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.